Hey friends, I'm New York personal injury attorney Kyle Newman here with one of my favorite topics, how we calculate money compensation for accident victims here in New York. So first up, compensation when it comes to personal injury cases, of course, means money. What sum of money would fairly and adequately compensate that person based upon the damages that they suffered as a result of their accident? And in New York, there are essentially three main areas of damages that we look at in any personal injury or medical malpractice lawsuit, each of which are going to be broken down into two sections: past and future damages. So a quick caveat about past and future damages, and this will make a little bit more sense in a bit, but in order to be permitted to include future damages in your calculations, the accident victim has to be claiming a permanent injury that will affect them for the rest of their life, which has to be supported by sufficient evidence in order to make that future damages claim. Another thing about future damages is that although we can't predict exactly how long a person is going to live, we do have these wonderful things called life expectancy tables, which are accepted scientific averages for the expected lifespan of both men and women based on their current age. In order to see what a life expectancy table looks like, check it out on the Social Security Administration's website at ssa.gov. It'll give you a breakdown based on men and women of what their life expectancy is based on age. In personal injury and medical malpractice cases, there are three major categories of damages that we look at. The first category is medical expenses, which is broken down into past medical expenses, meaning from the date of that accident until present, and future medical expenses, meaning from today's date until however long that person is expected to live. Past medical expenses are fairly straightforward. We pretty much just add up how much money was spent by the victim or is owed by them in the form of liens for medical treatment that is stemming from their accident. And yes, it can only be treatment related to the accident. We do this by gathering things like doctor, hospital, and EMS records, by co-pays, insurance deductibles, cost of transportation, pharmacy bills, home health care, even alterations done in the home for a disability such as installing ramps or wheels or other assistive devices. On the flip side, we have the cost of future medical care, which is where we approximate the annual yearly cost of medical treatment in the future. And we do that by multiplying that number by the amount of years that person is expected to live. Now, this calculation, it can be pretty simple or extremely complex in the context of a severely disabled person. Typically, the more severe the injury, the more future medical treatment a person is going to need. Things like annual doctor's visits, periodic hospitalizations, medical equipment, diagnostic studies, and even home health aides. In order to get an accurate figure for future medical expenses, we enlist a life care planner who is typically a physician who is going to prepare a detailed report outlining a person's annual medical costs with every type of specific need that they have. And again, we take that annual number and then we multiply it by their life expectancy, and there you go. Future medical expenses. So after we get the past and future medical expenses figured out, the next thing we look at is a person's lost earnings, which are also divided up into past and future, but this has to be reportable income where a person pays taxes. If a person, for instance, is off the books with no tax returns or no tax history, it's going to make it extremely hard to make a claim for lost earnings. In the event of a catastrophic injury where someone is totally disabled and they can't ever go back to work, in order to figure out how much their lost earnings are going to be in the future, we use an economist who is an expert, and they look at a person's entire financial, economic, and wage background by looking at their tax returns, W-2s, and payment stubs, and they calculate a projected dollar amount based on their annual projected earnings and their life expectancy. All right, so we got medical expenses, we got lost earnings. Last, we're gonna look at pain and suffering, which is without question the most difficult category of damages to put a concrete number on. And here's why. Unlike a life expectancy table, which gives you numbers based on objective scientific averages, when it comes to pain and suffering, there are no tables or charts to determine how much a person's pain is worth, how much their suffering is worth, how much their loss of the enjoyment of their prior life is worth. It's a subjective thing, right? And it varies in value from state to state and even from jurisdiction to jurisdiction. Now, personal injury lawyers like us, we may have an idea of what the value of pain and suffering is on a case because of our experience litigating similar cases. But the best way to figure out the value of pain and suffering is by looking at prior verdicts and settlements in your jurisdiction for similar cases with similar injuries. To do that, we use something called a jury verdict reporter, which is a service which collects information on verdicts and settlements that come out each year in each venue of a particular state, and they do this all across the country. And through their search function, we can actually insert keywords into the search, things like ankle surgery or brain injury, things like age, gender, to see what other cases have been valued in that jurisdiction over the years. This search would be similar to buying real estate, where in order to value a home, you would look at what the comps are, which are the comparable home values of similar properties in the area where you want to buy, to get an idea of what those homes sold for so you can justify your purchase price. It's really the same thing here, looking at prior verdicts to justify the damages that you're alleging in your case. Okay, so that was a breakdown of the categories of damages accident victims use to calculate how much would be fair compensation for their settlement or verdict at trial here in New York. Look, if you have any questions about this stuff, leave it in the comments. But for now, stay safe out there. I'll see you next time.